Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core Recruitment, if you don't know, is a specialist hospitality and FMCG recruitment company. We operate in the UK in lots of different, 8 different international locations as well. We do mid to level and senior level recruitment for exec and non-exec positions. Now, the reason we're running this interview series is to encourage some entrepreneurism, some positivity into the sectors that we operate within. And we're really lucky to be speaking to some amazing business leaders who have agreed to take part. All of these interviews and articles can all be seen on our website, which is www.corerecruitment.com. So relax for the next 20 minutes and listen to the legend that is Harvey Armstrong telling us all about his amazing, award-winning, low-calorie, gluten-free, low-carb, vegan, low-sugar beer. That's quite an accolade, right, Harv?
A lot of things going on there, yeah.
There's a lot of things going on there, you know what I mean? So for those who live down a dark hole and have not been to the pub in the past kind of like 5 years, can you tell us a bit about Prime Lager and where the business is currently?
Yeah, well, thank you for the intro, and pleasure to be on. Yeah, so Prime Time is all about beer but better. That's our tagline. We've got a range of beers now, all award winning, which is great. But just approach the beer space with innovation and with a better for you kind of mindful approach. So it's for people that love beer, but they also love their health, their wellness. And they love to have a good time and still want to, enjoy life to the fullest. Sam and I, Sam's my co-founder. We founded it about 3.5 years ago, but conceptualized it, 2 years prior to that, really on the ethos of living life to the fullest. That was it. We wanted to have a good time, enjoy, being out and about with our mates, our loved ones, at the pub, after a sporting match, after, a long day at work, and enjoy a few good beers, but not undo all of our hard work. So yeah, all of our beers are lower calorie, lower carb, lighter on the waistline. And then now we've got sort of a range of functional beers. We've got a Nashi pear infused lager, so it's like a fruit sweet lager. It's delicious, but Nashi pear is actually highly functional as a fruit. It's really high in vitamins, but it's also got like an enzyme that's known for breaking down alcohol and reduces the hangover. So there's quite a lot of studies now around this Nashi pear juice being consumed before you go out and actually reduces your hangover. And then we've got a 0% beer infused magnesium and vitamin B12. So it's kind of like depending what mood you're in for what like beer and what occasion, we've got a better for you approach. So that's kind of
That's
it.
amazing. I know your growth has been pretty meteoric over the past kind of like 3.5 years. So just like, in terms of numbers and distribution and all of that kind of stuff, where are you guys kind of sitting at the moment?
Where are we now? So yeah, we just closed out our third full year last year, obviously now into early 2026. And we sort of closed the year, I guess what we're in about 300 or so bars and pubs around London and sort of, some parts of the UK, into Waitrose and Tesco. So we must have been about 700. Well, we got about over 1,000 distribution points across those supermarkets, with a few of our SKUs. Now we just started actually getting some export traction going. So in UAE, the US, and moving over across to Ireland. So yeah, a lot to be done, but looking back, yeah, proud of where we're at for sure.
And seeing how you guys operate the business, how commercial you are, how driven you are, how much passion and energy. I mean, the thing that we probably do with you most days, kind of like Taste of London every year, where you throw the best party. I have to say, at Taste of London, kind of like every single year, which is like incredible. But this entrepreneurial streak, were you selling lemonade to your schoolmates when you were 6 years old? Has this always been something that you've been doing, or is this something that developed over time?
I actually got asked this question the other day on a podcast, and yeah, I wasn't lemonade, but I was that guy, making tuck shops at school and upselling bits. And we had this. I grew up in Australia in my younger years. My dad's an Aussie, and they have this council pickup like every 6 months. You can throw out all your like things that aren't your standard rubbish, old sofas, old TVs, whatever it might be that you just need to get rid of. That goes to the tip. And I'd go around as a young child and basically repurpose it. I called it trash and treasure. And I'd go around and be like, well, actually, that's got a bit of value. And then I'd sell it back to like houses, like a few doors down the street. So I remember doing stuff like that. So I always had a bit of a flair, but then I was an accountant by trade. So, probably not quite the entrepreneurial, route. But I did that from 18. I did it as a sort of uni course that kind of accelerated me through my ACA. But I did that knowing that it's a good base for business and an understanding. And then I kind of fled the nest of PwC as soon as I qualified and went straight into the deep end with giving entrepreneurism a punt. But yeah, definitely looking back, I guess I had it in my blood somewhere.
Trash or treasure? I think there's there's a whole concept involved with that as well. Harvey, I
Yeah.
absolutely love that.
One
My
man's
next
trash is
question,
another man's treasure.
exactly. Now, my next question was like having studied finance and being on that fast track with PwC. I mean, why hospitality? Because like the media at the moment, and especially for the last kind of like 5 years, hasn't always been positive about hospitality as a sector. So why were you quite keen to develop that as opposed to tech or finance or something like that?
Um, I think, I love hospitality. I love socializing. I love being out and about. I love connecting with individuals, people. It's a passion, I'm a social butterfly. Leaving PwC, I wanted to look, where the Venn diagram of where do my passions lie, where's my skill set lie, and where's there opportunity. And yeah, to your point, yeah, the industry at the moment is a lot of pressure from multiple angles, but we're innovating and making it better. So I was like, well, I grew up in Australia where low carb, low calorie beer is a hugely established part of the beer industry, as it is in the US now. Michelob Ultra has just become the number one selling beer in the US, and that is a 4.2% 95 calorie beer, lower carb beer as well. And that's exactly the same credentials as we are here. So it's not just a niche, it's a mainstream movement globally now. So I kind of saw case studies of success from those two territories and thought, you know what, I can bring this to the UK or do it in the UK and be of benefit to the beer drinking community, offer them a better for you option, and to pubs and bars that need to keep that innovation and competitive advantage and speak to the consumer in the right way, because otherwise they're going to drop out of the market. And that's what we're seeing now for various reasons. But I think if you're not innovating and meeting consumer demands, which are this better for your health conscious, functional, alternatives to what was before, then you're in trouble. So I saw opportunity within potentially a declining market, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, as I mentioned before, I think you guys work incredibly hard and you've obviously grown the business kind of extremely quickly. How do you think having a media profile has influenced the growth of the business? Has it been a positive or a negative for you?
Yeah, it's very much a strategic move for Sam and I. We both we conceptualized and started building the early foundations of prime time, and then had the opportunity to go on the TV show Made in Chelsea. And I'd been asked for a number of years while I was still at PwC, and it was just not the right time for me. It wasn't strategically aligned with what I'm trying to do at the time. I hadn't thought, prime time's my next move. But then, when I got prime time to, conceptualize, it's like, what, this could now align. I could use it as a leverage tool, and create brand awareness and marketing, free marketing through it. So it was a strategic play, which has been very valuable, I have to say. There's not many cases where you can get that form of, TV presence and exposure for free, ultimately. And yeah, it also comes with being able to build your own brand profile, personal profile, and also opens a network of others in that world that you can that you become friends with, and therefore you can amplify through there. So it's been hugely valuable. It's hard to put a sort of monetary figure on it and attribute an
Uh,
exact sort of amount to it, but yeah, for sure.
And when it comes to kind of like attracting kind of like potential future investors, that kind of side of things, has that been a positive as well?
Yeah, it has. I think it definitely helps that I had a background in accounting and I wasn't just some reality TV guy trying to give it a crack. So that it could potentially be a bit kind of controversial maybe to start. They could be a bit skeptical, like, I don't know. And then like obviously when they get into my background and they're probably a bit more relaxed. But yeah, again, it's marketing value, and you can put it down on your balance sheet, or as an intangible in a way. So.
Absolutely. Now, looking at some of your competitors who have been going for slightly longer, they've diversified into gin, whiskey, key rings, like I mean, like just about like everything. In terms of kind of Prime Lager and like your plans for the business, kind of like next 5 years, what's the goal and what's the ambition?
Yeah, so UK. So our mission statement is bring the world beer for the better you. So we want to spread, prime time far and wide, but we are very focused on UK, and pioneering this sort of better for you beer space here, and being those guys that are synonymous with the ones that change the industry for the better. So yeah, UK sort of expansion. We've got a good footprint now in London, but we really want to sort of crack a few other cities. And scale through all the off trade, all the supermarkets, and be able to be a household name brand here in the UK. And ultimately, spread it globally, and that'll be either through sort of patience and or partnering with a global brewery, to leverage their network and scale the brand, get it as many hands as possible. The next five.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, not every day is a sunny day in business. I'm sure you've had a couple of dark ones in the past kind of like 3.5 years. And it's important that we talk about success, but I mean also like failures are part of kind of like everybody's journey. Can you tell us about one of your biggest failures or one of the ones that pops to mind and what you learned from it? Just one.
Yeah, we there's loads. A big one was when in about 10 months, almost the end of our first year, we just started picking up traction, done a lot of the hard work because we were learning. It's a steep learning curve. So it was probably the hardest accounts to open, and we'd got about sort of 40, 50 accounts. Pubs and bars selling our product. It was starting to go well. We're like, oh my God, this thing, like, people like it, people want it. And then our brewery went under, our sole supply chain. So we effectively started from scratch, beginning of year two, if you will, because we had to go find a new brewery. The time we'd found a new brewery and changed, like, that was the disruption meant we lost the whole business, really. So that was a tough learning. It taught me to hedge my supply chain and also really respect the partners I work with, and not because obviously in the early stages we were just happy to have found an incredible brewery, brewed a really good beer. We were so happy with it. It was able to meet our minimum volumes, which was very low at that point. But we didn't think of the worst case to happen. We didn't think that far. So now we always have sort of two breweries working on our product and ensuring the utmost quality control, and we're always looking for we're always got sights on a third as we're scaling up, so we've just been very much like tight. They're just tighter on our supply chain, in every degree really going forward. But that was a tough learning. And then there's some silly ones, like we printed like, which is quite a few, like 1,000 units of these like 6-pack like sample boxes, which are really nice. We still got them, but they're corrected now. But anyway, we'd all signed off between the team, like, yeah, it looks good to me, it looks good to me. It's printing 1,000 of these things, and then it was like award winning. It says on the inside of the box, award winning, and then we spelt taste wrong. We spelled tatse, like TATSE, and like no one picked it up, because I'm dyslexic, and so quite a few in the office. And it was just one of those things. And even when they came, someone was like, hey, "Can you see anything wrong with that?" I was like, "Took me so long," and then they realized. And it's one of those funny things. We ended up just printing exactly the same color, like another sticker, so we stick it on the inside, and like it was just one of those things you got to laugh about. But yeah.
Love that. So when like you didn't come from kind of like the FMCG beer background, I think Sam had some experience on that kind of side of things previously, but kind of like when you're going for kind of like support for mentorship, do you have kind of non-execs or like who's kind of like helped to steer you kind of through this journey, or have you guys just literally found it on your own path?
In the earlier stages, we were pretty independent with the approach. We since have a board, and I guess aligned to the natural evolution and maturity of the business. We've got now kind of a structured board that guide us and are incredibly helpful. but along the journey, no, I lent on in the earlier stages, like friends and close, people close to me in a more informal way to make sure I wasn't like completely going down the wrong route. But yeah, a lot of intuition and a lot of just giving it a go and learning quickly and adapting really in the early stages. Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, like how, like if there's people who are watching this who are kind of going, oh my God, that's my dream, that's what I would like to do one day, what advice would you kind of like give them? Because it sounds like you've methodically thought out your pathway. You took 2 years to plan it. You've got a business partner who you obviously get along kind of like exceptionally well with. Like what steps would you say somebody has to take?
Oh, I think if you've got a burning desire and you keep like sort of circling back to God, I need to like take the plunge. I need to you do it because that is it'll never leave you and only regret will follow you. So and if you've got that feeling like you're already like a good amount of the way there. And then dive into like what your passion is. Like that's got to be true because there will be tough days and nights. And if it's not something that you just love and are sort of authentically true to, you'll lose the will. And then look for, where there is opportunity. And make sure you are bringing value to the world with whatever that is, because it's as simple as that. Bring value to the world through whatever the product service is. As long as you shape it up and package up in the right way, it should be successful, and you've got the ability to drive that. Undeterred, and that comes with the passion side. And then I would recommend a co-founder. I would hate to have gone for a solo mission. I think it would have been an even lonelier, harder road. You've like someone you can halve the stress with, halve the hard decisions with, and halve the failures and regrets with, and also share the success and the rewards with. Yeah, definitely. And there's even a not psychological thing. There's even a metric where like venture capitalists and early stage investors will actually value a business slightly higher if there's co-founders and devalue it if there's a founder. So that's one to think about. Where do we get to? So yeah, passion there. Definitely get a partner. And just go for it. Like, don't think, oh no, it's not ready, and like perfection isn't real. And I think you learn and you evolve and adapt and develop and at such a rate of knots once you're actually going, because like yeah, you're in the deep end at sink and swim at that point, and you'll swim because you've got that far. And
Loved all of that.
yeah,
Loved all of that. Especially the bit where it's like
that
only regret will follow you, Harvey. That was quite
was
deep.
quite wise, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really good. That was really good.
Yeah.
And that's Buddhist, you know what I mean? That's incredible. But yeah, that's really
I'm
good.
30, I'm 31 tomorrow, so I'm obviously getting some wisdom with my age. So
Yeah, exactly. It's all clicking in now. It's brilliant.
it's all
Now,
happening, it's all happening.
last question that I had for you was kind of like was more about the sector kind of as a whole. We mentioned that hospitality doesn't always kind of like get the best rap, and kind of like especially the last kind of like 6 to 12 months with the NI costs and all of that side of things, kind of like, as an entrepreneur running a business which supplies into this sector, who want to thrive, who want to do well, who've got all that energy, all of that passion, what levers do you think the government could give you, and what could they do that would really help facilitate your growth and give you confidence to grow for the next kind of like, year to 3 years?
Well, there's quite a few bits really. Obviously we've got pressures on all the taxes, like with employer taxes and NIC, which is it's affecting the sort of pub and hospitality side probably more than us, just given the density of their staff base. But entrepreneur support, entrepreneurs relief, on any gains, it has gone up. So if that could hold where it was, I think it's 10%, gone up to 18. So it's not incentivizing as much, entrepreneurs to go out there and grow a business and grow a successful one and make something from it. And I think, yeah, I think that currently the system is very against founders and entrepreneurs. So I think a lot needs to be changed, and you can see there's a mass exodus of wealth and entrepreneurs leaving the UK, which is obviously not a positive for the ultimate goal of government, which is to create a thriving economy and for everyone to sort of, high tides rise all ships. And it's kind of, I feel we're going against that motto and that. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say without having sort of started a protest myself and looked into all the points that I would go with. Yeah, I know entrepreneurs relief is one, and but, and continuing like SEIS and EIS
Hmm.
incentives, they're great, and they really promote investment into startups, and they do make it much more able to raise money and make what a risky startup a bit more attractive to investors. So things like that are great, and that hasn't changed to my knowledge. But that could go up, so that'd be nice. In terms of like the amounts of relief or even the amounts you can take on as investment per year, etc. So
Excellent. That's really good. Well, look, Harvey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about Prime Lager and the journey. Congratulations on everything so far. Definitely, next time I probably see you is going to be Taste of London with a beer in my hand in the sunshine, kind of like doing that all again next summer. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
very good. Yeah, no, look forward to seeing you there. We're going to go bigger and better this year.